We welcome our Assistant Dean, Mrs. Monica Carola, ma'am, to please give the welcome note. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mriganshi, and it's my pleasure to welcome all the participants to this guest lecture. I also would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Siddharth Sijori, the Supreme Court advocate, who has been very kind enough to consent to talk to the participants in this guest lecture. And he has chosen a topic which is very important to all of us, because we know that all our rights vests in the Constitution, and fundamental rights and fundamental duties are extremely important for all citizens, and it's important to know them, to understand them, especially for law students. And to add to this, I would also, for the benefit of our guest speaker, want to tell you something about ICFI Law School. ICFI Law School started in the year 2004, and we have been on the growing path right from the beginning. We have helped in nurturing our students in becoming good lawyers, judges, and experts in law in different fields wherever they have joined. Our continuous effort is to make the learning process easy and be productive. Whenever the students are able to get some problem, they can solve them, and this has been done through the activities that we conduct, like legal aid, legal awareness, moot court, and other activities. In terms of research, we have started several centers who are focusing on their specialized areas like cyber law, human rights and humanitarian law, ADR, IPR. So there is a continuous effort to see that we are able to specialize in areas which are becoming important, and where our students will be able to get jobs and will be able to practice, have a good practice in those fields. So with these objectives, we have been able to get some good rankings in terms of national ranking and ranking in Uttarakhand, given by different ranking institutes. So we are very happy to welcome the guest speaker today. And I also welcome all the participants for being with us and being a part of this learning process. Thank you, Mriganshi. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Mr. Divakar Das, sir, to please introduce our guest speaker for today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mriganshi, ma'am. A very good afternoon to respected Assistant Dean, ma'am, faculty members, law professionals, and dear students. It is my privilege to introduce our guest of the day, Advocate Siddharth Sijoria. Advocate Siddharth Sijoria graduated from Amity Law School and thereafter joined the Chamber of Constitutional Jurists, late Mr. T.R. Andya as an associate lawyer. He has represented and assisted Mr. Andya in leading constitutional cases concerning death penalty, executive powers, river disputes, human rights, etc. before the Honorable Supreme Court of India. In the year 2016, Advocate Siddharth was appointed by the government of Maharashtra to represent the state before the Krishna River Water Dispute Tribunal, constituted to adjudicate the dispute concerning river water sharing between 4 neighboring states. In the year 2017, Mr. Siddharth attended Central European University Budapest to pursue his Master in Comparative Constitutional Law with a merit-based scholarship. After successful completion of his Master's, Advocate Siddharth returned to India and has been practicing as an independent counsel before the Supreme Court of India and the High Court of Madhya Pradesh, where he represents clients in constitutional, commercial, and criminal cases. Besides practicing law, Mr. Siddharth teaches constitutional law at Amity Law School, Gwalior, as an adjunct faculty. His scholarly interests primarily focus on the study of constitutional amendments, and he frequently writes about the development of constitutional amendment doctrine across the globe. He is also serving as a peer review member for the state law magazine Constitutional Law, State University, Columbia. Siddharth sir is a cricket enthusiast and writes poems as a hobby. He has served as law school cricket team captain and has been a head of literature committee while at law school. Sir, we welcome you for today's lecture session on fundamental duties, our spirit to promote fraternity, brotherhood, and rich heritage of composite culture. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Divakarji, for this introduction, and I want to say thank you to all for attending this session. And as we have 1 hour to discuss this issue, this is a very important issue. So we'll try to do it like this. We'll have the lecture and then we'll have a question answer session, because the main idea for me today when I was reading this or understanding this topic, and we both will learn together, because from dialogue only something emerges which should leave us with a thought at the end of the session. And this topic is very interesting because I feel that since the inception of the Constitution, we were so much inclined to study about the idea of rights, because we were more focused on the idea of independence. We were all wanting India to be a republic, and then when we were framing our constitution, the idea of fundamental duties as a concept had not existed then, but it has been incorporated in the Indian Constitution as a amendment which took place in 1978 in the 42nd Amendment. So just to give you a brief introduction, Constitution is a document that narrates the idea. Constitution is a document that tells and divides the power between different organs of the state, which is the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. And it also guarantees rights to people. Now, when we talk of right also comes with a sense of duty, which is towards the state, because as you must have read in your constitutional law classes, that rights exist and there is a corresponding duty. And there is a concept of positive right and negative right, where state has to give effect to certain rights, where it becomes a positive, because state has been given that duty to enforce a particular right. But there is another kind of duty which did not exist at the time of inception of the Constitution as such, but it came as an amendment in the Indian Constitution. So I'm not saying that amendment or fundamental duties did not exist at the time of the inception of the Constitution as such, because many scholars have written that in the preamble of India, when we talk of a preamble to the Constitution, when preamble talks about that we the people of India, so there is a assertion that all the people of India are giving themselves a constitution where they will try to achieve political, social, economic justice, and then in the spirit of common brotherhood, they will try to achieve various functions and various ideals of the Constitution. So this is the general idea about what fundamental duties were there at the time of inception of the Constitution, and all throughout the Constitution journey, how fundamental duties come into existence. So when we talk of the idea of fundamental duties of citizens, we must realize that when we look at Constitution exists as a document which is a living document. When I say Constitution is a living document, it means that it has to be given life by an active participation, not only by the citizens or not only by the state mechanisms or machineries, but also by the efforts of the citizens. For example, if we look in Germany, there is an explicit constitutional article which gives the right to the people to stand up against any kind of encroachment on the Constitution of Germany, and people have been given a right that they have a right to protest against anything that happens against the Constitution. Similarly, when in 1940, in 1970s, when the idea of fundamental duties were being discussed in the parliament and in the general discourse, and it was seen by the people or the parliamentarians or the government then that there is a sense of disintegration which is taking place, or there is some sense of disunity, or the lack of people's involvement in the democratic process was something which was seen by the then government in 1970s. So in order to introduce constitutional reforms then, the then government constituted the Swan Singh Committee. Now the duty of the Swan Singh Committee during that time was to present some constitutional reforms so that we can bring in more people's participation in the idea of constitution, and then people do exist as a democratic tool where people can give effect to what is the ultimate purpose of the constitution. So when we say that why people's involvement is very important, because people were having rights then, and it was written in the Swan Singh Committee also that people then had rights, but there was absent sense of duty towards the constitution. So Swan Singh Committee then in the 42nd Amendment, which was accepted, had recommended 10 fundamental duties for 10 fundamental duties for every citizen, which was incorporated after the Directive Principles chapter, and it was entitled as Chapter 4A, and there Article 51A was introduced that had 10 fundamental duties for the citizens of India. And mind you, when I say citizens of India, that is not applicable for the for all persons, because if you read Chapter 3 of the Constitution of Part 3 guaranteed certain rights to all persons. But if you look at the idea or the definition of fundamental duties, they are only the duties which are given to the citizens. So that means that there is a scope and there is an argument to be built that fundamental duties are giving effect to the idea of Indianness. So when I say Indianness, what I mean to say here is that we as a collective unity of people who are not uniform in the religion, in language, in caste, in their different other fields, but together we do represent something which is very essential, that we all are part of India. So there is a duty which is given to each citizen to promote the idea of their sense of belonging to the nation. So when I say that there are different fundamental duties under Article 51A of the Indian Constitution, I say that and again, one thing that I need to tell you is that in 1986, in the 86th Amendment, another duty was added to the Constitution. So it became, in Article 51A, there are a total of 11 duties to which every citizen must abide by. So the first and most important duty that is there under Article 51A is to respect the Constitution of India, the flag and anthem. So the first important duty, as you say, I mean, today you can see around that there are debates about the Constitution and its existence, that what the Constitution should be or should not be, or that you must see that everybody should stand for national anthem. That is also a debate. Or people are being kicked and beaten sometimes because they did not stand up for the national anthem. So this is all that germanes from fundamental duty, which is under Article 51A. But that you will be surprised to know that even that fundamental duty was given an exception when people assert their rights, that in their religious beliefs that fundamental right or that duty could not be performed. As there was one important case of Bijoy Emmanuel case where the Supreme Court of India had said that if your religious belief do not permit you to stand for national anthem, then there will not be any obligation, because the nature of fundamental duties are that they are unenforceable. So the foremost duty but is to represent the idea of India that is being seen through the Constitution, which celebrates the idea of unity in diversity, that respects the idea that individual can be different in their outlook, but that should not mean that they should be discriminated against, because everybody, as I said in the beginning, that what Article 51(1) represent is the collective responsibility of every citizen of India to assert themselves as Indian. So what is Indian? What is the duty that comes into existence is these 11 duties. And the first and the foremost, which I told you, is to respect the constitution, the flag, and the constitutional and the national anthem. Then the second duty, which is mentioned under Article 51A, is to cherish the idea of freedom struggle. So there are debates even today that our independence of India was not revolutionary, so there was no ideal freedom in the sense how French would understand it, because French had a complete revolution against the aristocracy, and other countries like Italy had a unification, and there were revolutionary war to get the independence. But India had a different history, because there was a freedom struggle for getting the right to make laws, for getting the right to get representation in the parliament, and other struggles which are important at that point of time. So one of the essential duty that is given to every individual is to cherish the idea of freedom struggle and to respect the freedom that the war that and the lives that Indian freedom fighters have given in for securing independence of the citizens, and to ensure that India achieves its independence from the foreign rule. And then there is and here I also like to say that you have to see that when we talk of cherishing the ideals of freedom struggle, what I also want to say is here that what I, from other reading and the importance of the Constituent Assembly debates, what I also focus here is that we have to, that India existed as a nation of subjects before British came. We were subject of the people which belonged to India, like for example, kings or the princes that were even then existing during the British rule, because India was a nation that became a nation after more than 625 princely states decided to come and join India as a one state. So even then, the situation of individuals then was not of a citizen under a rule, but more of a subject. So this freedom struggle and respect to freedom struggle must also be given for the fact that there has been the fight for individual freedom. So once the constitution came into existence, the character of subject had transformed into one of citizens, where constitution focuses on the idea of self, then a collective body. So individuals, the freedom struggle that have given their life for this is also very important. Then thirdly, what is also important is that, like I mentioned, during the 1970s, there were a lot of separatist tendencies in India, because there were people who were demanding a separate statehood. For example, if you see today, even there are the debates like this in Jammu and Kashmir and other parts of India, where there are divisive politics. There, the third important duty that is cast upon citizens is to uphold sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. So when we say sovereignty, unity, integrity, that is something that helps India protect its border, its people, and the idea of Indianness. So this is the third duty, that we must not support any kind of tendencies which are separatist in their nature, or anything that affects the unity of people and integrity for the nation. Then there is the fifth one, which is also very important from present topic, is to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood, and also support the idea of dignity of women. So this is, I'll take some time to explain this particular fundamental duty under the Indian Constitution, because this is something which is presently before as a topic also it's there. So when we say that to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood, this has been recognized by many judgments in India, is a concept of bandhutva, which means bandhu, as you might know, bandhu in Hindi basically means brother or friend. So that is the idea of fraternity, which Supreme Court in many judgments have said that common brotherhood is very important for India because it represents the Indian feature or cultural heritage of the idea of common brotherhood or bandhutva. India, when it came into existence, was a, like, you know, there were partition, there was partition which was happening, and there were caste discrimination which was prevalent even during and after, and even today, that there are positions where caste differentiations happens. So this fundamental duty is very important because it promotes, very importantly, the idea of fraternity, which is very central to Indian constitution. Because even if you look at the preamble begins and it declares that it tries to promote, above everything, it tries to promote the idea of fraternity. So fraternity is very central to India because India do not represent one people, but India represent so many people as one. So common brotherhood is very important. And I'll tell you from one of my personal experience that when I felt the idea of Indianness, that I was in some place in Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand, and I was there for a trekking purpose. And I traveled and I tracked for many hours, and I reached a particular village. There I was treated and greeted by the people. I didn't know their language. They didn't know me, but I could see with their hospitality, and I was taken to one of the houses of one of the villages there, and they gave me water and they gave me food, which was such a good gesture, despite the fact that I couldn't understand their language. But the fact that I could relate to the idea of India was something that has made me understand the value of what India stands for and the importance of this fundamental duty to treat everyone as their brother, so that we can assert ourselves as one together. Then the sixth important fundamental duty that is enshrined in Constitution is to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. So which also basically means that you should not, like, so there, like, many Supreme Court judgments has also used this particular feature to say that if you go to archaeological sites or anything that represent Indian culture, which have been there for many, many years, we should not have debate about who built or who did not build it, but we must appreciate the idea that it belongs to India as a whole. So we must give respect to the idea that we live in a land where which is a conglomeration of cultures which represent the composite culture where Hindu, Muslim, everyone have lived together. For example, even if you look at the idea that in Assam, there are places where Muslims and Hindus together have bhajan sandhyas where they organize, and if you look at so many places in India where Muslim culture follows the Hindu tradition because of their social belonging. And also there have been like Sufi saints in past have invoked Ram, Rahim, or Kabir Das have referred to everyone together. So that is the composite culture that we talk about when we look at this particular duty in the Indian Constitution. So when we talk about that, do we have a culture which represent one? So there maybe our practices have been different, but there have been a composite culture which have existed, which represent India as one, where we, disregarding our religious differences, we have come together to celebrate each other. For example, many Kabir Panthis in India do that they in their evocation they refer to not God as two but as one. So all celebrate this together. So we have this kind of composite culture which exists in India. So we must have a respect for that. Then, and another, the seventh important the fundamental duty which has been invoked a lot by the Supreme Court of India is to protect and improve environmental, natural environment. So as you know that our environment, we have a special constitutional bench, important constitutional court called NGT, which deals with environmental law. So environment is a very important topic in India, and we have also provided a particular platform for people to come and raise issues concerning the degradation of environment in India. So, and this is also, this fundamental duty is one of the most important fundamental duty, because Supreme Court, though, as I mentioned to you in the earlier part, that fundamental duty is unenforceable, but most of the time, in many cases, Supreme Court of India and different high courts have looked at the fundamental duties and they have imposed cost on polluters because they have misused their position. For example, there is this case of rural litigation in entitlement Kendra versus state of UP, where the Supreme Court have said that doing mining affects the affects the environment, and the one miner who's doing illegal mining is violating his sacred duty under the Indian Constitution. So when we look at this also, we find that in the Indian Constitution, though the Supreme Court have looked at fundamental duties to say that they are unenforceable because they are not justiciable, but at the same time, the court have also been very cautious in using fundamental right to say that using fundamental duties to educate the people on why they have to preserve the environment, because environment not only affects an individual, but in fact it affects the society as a whole. So that is why it is important to have such a duty. Then there was another case, this MC Mehta versus Kamilnath, where again the court have said that if, as you might know, there are directive principles of the state policy which imposes duty on the state to protect or to give effect to certain non-enforceable rights. But in MC Mehta versus Kamilnath case, the court have said that Article 48A that provides that state has a duty to protect the environment, 51G also obliges the citizens to protect the environment. So this is also an important and most enforced provision and most used provision in the Indian Constitution that allows people to do that. Then the 8th important fundamental duty under the Indian Constitution is to develop scientific temper and humanism. So which means that when, and this is very self-evident, that we, as you know, that we have evolved from a species of people, not we as Indian, but as a humanity, where we have believed in the idea, many ideas, but which turned out to be very different, very contrary, and totally opposite from what they were believed to be. So belief has been one thing. As you see that in India, there was a sati pratha, which people celebrated then, and they used it as a tradition, but then it was later on declared to be an illegal and inhuman practice. So we have to develop a scientific temper where we say that beliefs cannot come in the way of development of a nation's intellectual capacity, because scientific temper is very important for a nation's growth. So that is why, I mean, I refer to this particular practice because of Sati Pratha, because when I earlier mentioned to you about the idea of fraternity and common brotherhood, that particular duty also requires Indian citizens to respect and uphold dignity of women in every sphere of life, because India has developed from such a sphere. Then as you might see that we have seen this a lot these days, to safeguard public property and to abjure violence. This is the 9th important fundamental duty of citizens. As you may have seen in Uttar Pradesh, the government started collecting fines from the protesters because they were accused of violating or of damaging the public property. And other parts of India, you will see that even in Canada or in England, they have used at certain point of time, they have used these particular way of imposing duty on the citizens so that they do not take revenge from public duty, because there is a mechanism in law. So you should not take law in hand and then disturb the peace and take law in your hands to develop and to destroy public property. Then 10th duty is to strive for excellence. And that subjects to many people, excellence has different meanings. But to strive for excellence is a important feature, because we must, at every time, we must always understand that where lies the progress and where lies our going back to from where we came from idea. Because we must look at what we can do to be better, not from somebody else, from what we were yesterday, and what is the definition, ideal definition of a better person that you are. And this is very individualistic, because if you look at it, this excellence, we have to look at ourselves, and then if we strive for excellence as a person, then we'll become a better nation tomorrow. So this is one of the important fundamental features. And then lastly, the last fundamental duty, which was inserted in as an 86th amendment, is the duty of the parents and guardian to educate their children. So as we have seen and as we have discussed that this is, and now you must be knowing that in India we have a fundamental right under Article 21A of the Indian Constitution that provides for the right of a children to education. So education is a must, and it is not a duty of the child to be educated or the student himself or the state, but it is the sacred duty, it is a duty of the parent to send child to school and get them educated. So this is also your right, your duty to get your children educated and get them education. So this is also very important from the perspective of fundamental duties. So I just wanted to describe you these 11 fundamental duties which exist in the Indian Constitution. Now, how the courts have dealt with the idea of fundamental duties in India. So like I mentioned to you that in India, mostly this fundamental duty has been used to describe and has been mostly invoked while dealing with environmental laws. But there have been certain cases where this has been invoked in cases where the dignity and upholding of dignity of individual, especially women, was involved. For example, if you must have read about the Vishakha guideline case, when the Supreme Court of India in 1990s has come up with certain guidelines to protect women against sexual harassment at the workplace. So, and in that judgment, the Supreme Court had discussed the idea of fundamental duties, why it is the important duty of offices to have a committee formed so that women's dignity are upheld. And even in other cases, Supreme Court have used this particular document to say that fundamental duties is also a way of interpreting statute where statutes are silent. So these are some important features. Like I mentioned to you earlier, that again, I'm saying this, that fundamental duties are unenforceable. So courts generally do not use them, but in certain cases they have dealt with this. And I want to mention to you another important case where in Avinash Nagar versus Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti versus and others, there the Supreme Court had given, this was Rajasthan High Court. Rajasthan High Court had observed that it is the role of the teachers. The court have said that it is the duty of the teachers to spread the message of fundamental duties to make student civil. So you have seen that courts have also, because of their inability to use fundamental duties as a tool of interpretation, but they've always recognized fundamental duties as an important feature that exists within the Indian Constitution. So So what I wanted to bring this to your attention so that you understand that this has become from having no fundamental duty under the constitution, we have come to a stage where we firstly imbibe and incorporated the values in 42nd Amendment, but we never recognized them as an enforceable document. Then as a, like I mentioned to you, like we have a living tree doctrine. With the passage of time, we started recognizing fundamental duties in Indian constitution as a way of accepting it as a tool of interpretation. And also with the changing times, we have also realized that fundamental duties are now even used by courts to tell the teachers or students and the state to make children learn these fundamental duties so that they become a better citizen. So there has been a transition of fundamental duties as a tool. And I feel, in my personal opinion, there, like what the German constitution says, that it is the duty of every citizen. So we must also become conscious of this duty so that we are able to assert ourselves as one. Because if we follow these fundamental duties clearly, then we will be able to understand the issues where and how we need to protect the very first duty. If we are able to, for example, if we are able to focus on other important duties which are there in the constitution and Article 51A, then we will be able to reflect on Article 51A, the first duty, which is to protect the constitution. Because we wouldn't understand how our constitution is to be protected unless we realize what constitution talks about when it says that we have to celebrate ourselves as one. Because you might, if you're not able to assert yourself, for example, if you look at the price hikes in France, there was an orange jacket protest where everybody came on the street and they protested as one people on the street of Paris and other parts of France to say that they are one people, and they asserted themselves because in France, the idea of fraternity exists as a concrete concept and people treat themselves as one. And they recently, it became an orange vest protest where people came out together on the street. So this is how people together assert, because it is their duty to protect the idea of oneness in the constitution. Similarly, you look at other times when people come together, when they claim that they are protecting the constitution as one people. So the idea of one people must be there to protect what constitution says. And if I may refer to one important judgment that I've read, and that judgment, I have made a note of it. It's a judgment of, I don't know, maybe 17th or 16th century, where justice, or maybe later, but Justice Learned Hand, when he had convicted the England's king, or sorry, as you would remember, that earlier times in England, even today, the king is a sovereign, and then sovereignty got transferred to the parliament. So where parliament still sovereign, but at the time when king used to be the person who was in charge, at that period of time, king had passed some order against one journalist who has written something against him. And then the person applied to the court of Learned Hand. And that time, Learned Hand, the judge, wrote something very beautiful. And he said about liberty, because he was interpreting a law concerning liberty. And he had said that liberty lies in the heart of men. If it is there, no court can take it away. If it is not there, then no court can enforce it. So similarly, I feel that the duty of an individual towards their constitution must come from the heart, and it should not come from any other place. If it is there, your duty towards your constitution, then nobody can take it away from you, and you will be together or you will be in unison expressing it. But if it is not there, then the problem that there would be divisiveness amongst people, which is detrimental to the idea of constitution. But sometimes, like before I part, I like to discuss that there are certain, like what people have discussed, scholars have discussed, that the idea of poverty, overpopulation, or incompetence are some of the reasons why some people have discussed that poverty, or the idea of just these are some, like people said, poverty or indiscipline, lack of education, and population explosion. These are some of the features, or separatist tendencies, or indifferent attitude toward people. These are some of the features that makes individual not perform their duties, and these are some of the features that becomes a problem in performing these duties. But I feel that if people realize that these are the problem that exist, and then they use constitution as a means to fight these evils that prevent them from going forward and claiming their right, then I feel that there would be a better situation when we are able to deal with this together. So I feel that with this, I would like to end this discussion and open this for a discussion, because I think the idea here is to go off with a sense of thought, and we must have something to share so that we leave each other with a thought at the end of the discussion. Thank you for this wonderful session.
Indeed, it was a wonderful presentation, sir. Priyankshi ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for the enriching session. I request the participants, if they have any questions, to type them in the chat box.
We have got a wonderful question from one participant, I think, ma'am.
Okay, Satabdi Rabha, she has asked this question: what is the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, and its important features correlated to CAA or NRC in Assam?
I feel that there has been a lot of debate concerning CAA, and there are important questions involving it, because there are suggestions that it is, because I'm not commenting on the act itself, but from debates that have been going on from both the sides. And like the important issue is this, that if you are claiming minority, if you're giving minority to an individual, and you are opening up the borders for minority, particularly Hindus, then why it is only restricted to few states and why not other states? And this is a very legal argument, because then you cannot say that Hindus which are coming from some other states, for example Canada, and who want to come back to India, they would have to face a tougher issue than what Hindus in these neighboring states would have to face. And then secondly, the issue has been that if we are claiming to give the citizenship to individuals who are coming from these areas, who are persecuted minorities, then why not treat the Ahmadiyas in Pakistan also as one of the minorities? Because they are they are not even considered, like, I don't know if you guys know, but Ahmadiyas is a community in Pakistan, which in 1970s, through a constitutional amendment, were declared to be non-citizens. So because of this feature, we might see that they like Ahmadiyya community is something that is very, I mean, they're not even treated as humans in Pakistan. So there have been situations where court have suggested the idea that, look, in India, where I have seen what people are discriminating against is this. And secondly, so this was the idea on the differentiation between that, why there is a difference of treating similar situated people. Because when you look at in India, we follow, whenever we are looking or challenging any law on the basis of equality, then we focus on the principle of intelligible differentia. So whenever we make a distinction, it is the duty of the state to provide that distinction has been made on intelligible ground. So these are some of the problems that people who are against the act have suggested. And then second argument on CAA is this, that look, because in India there have been problems when NRC was being introduced in Assam. Some people who are citizens of India, because they do not have papers, were treated as non-citizens. And there have been, like, I can't recollect right now, but there have been so many cases where I think there was a Subedar who fought a war in 1971, and then he was declared to be a non-citizen. So there are problems of bureaucracy level where people who are citizens of India may not be able to get the documents to prove their nationality or citizenship. So there have been debates. I think it would be much better when this matter goes to the court. And I think people have a right to protest under Indian Constitution. So people exercise that right together. I think this is, I mean, for CA, I think otherwise it will be a whole new session for discussing.
Thank you, sir. Very aptly answered. And due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take up more questions. So I'll just give you one last question. This is from Nonu. And the question is, how can we promote the individual into thinking that one can be more obliged towards the country? Because most of us, we don't follow the rules and regulations given by the government.
See, I'll tell you one thing, this is like I told you at the last, the statement by my favorite, my favorite piece of judgment ever, because it does not talk about law when he was dealing with a very important question of law. He said that liberty lies in the heart of men. If it is there, no court can take it away. If it is not there, no court can enforce it. So people can be, I think, if we change, this is very, very idealistic, very philosophical, because the question is like that. But I think as we grow old, we realize that the answer to the question is always simple. It's we who are unable to do it, and then we try to find different means to attain that goal, which could be achieved by being what we wish to be. So I think if we change ourselves, then we become what we wish to see, and then others might see us. Because I have seen that with me, if I would not throw anything, on the road, and if somebody is walking by with me and I pick up, or if somebody else throws it on the ground and I pick it up, then this does make people think about it. And I think if we are able to showcase to other people that you are capable of doing good thing, then people do definitely follow. And there have been instances, I mean, you read about people, like I, for example, I wouldn't say it, but when I, like in my home city, Gwalior, there was a pathetic problem of road safety. And people would always be that government never does their work, government never do anything. Then I decided to raise that issue in a PIL, and I read the laws, I read everything, and I found out that there are so many things that the government even have created fund for making roads, but it's just that people do not ask the right question to the authorities, and authorities feel people don't know. So this has taken me almost like 7-8 months, but today roads are being built and state have been answering to the courts. So things definitely, I think at the end of the day, you take away from my acts and my court cases that I've engaged myself in, cases with regard to public law. I think when we give more, we try to do things, and slowly and gradually you will realize that it only takes simple efforts at the end of the day. I mean, the idea of common brotherhood, when I was talking about it in the earlier, you look at how other courts have seen it in India. Recently, there was this very interesting case which happened in Madhya Pradesh High Court, which I had written about in Bar and Bench, where the court have said that if you put caste name in public, that affects your right as a citizen to come together and celebrate a person who's, for example, in Gwalior, a statue of a particular individual was being erected, and then that particular statue was prefixed with his caste name, and some other members belonging to some other caste objected to the inclusion of the caste name on the statue because they felt that that particular person belonged to their caste. So they approached the court, and the court said, look, the idea of display of caste in public by public money, does it violate the principle of fraternity? So the court has referred this question to the constitutional bench or to the division bench of a high court. But I had written about it and I have said you should not promote things which definitely might lead to problems. And we, at the end of the day, try to create what is Indian, then being what we want it to be. So I think the idea of India floats from the constitution, and the constitution is a document which may have 10 faults. But before we think about changing or doing something, desecrating it or doing anything wrong to it, we must realize that there are 10 good things that constitution mentions. Have we able to achieve those 10 things? If we are able to, then we must move ahead. And to enforce duty is to ask those people same question, that let us achieve 10 rights for everyone. Then we must think of enforcing other things. This is what I wish to say.
Thank you, sir, for providing a crystal clear view. Now I request Dr. A.K. Singhal, sir, Associate Professor, ICFI Law School, to please present the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam, for giving me the opportunity to give the vote of thanks of today's wonderful session. Good evening, one and all present here. Chief guest of today's guest lecture, Mr. Siddharth Sejoria ji, Advocate Supreme Court of India. Brigadier Rajiv Sethi ji, Registrar ICFI University Dehradun. Assistant Dean ILS, Mrs. Monica Carola ji. Faculty members and all the students from ICFI Law School, the ICFI University Dehradun. And from the other colleges of India, I, Dr. A.K. Singhal, welcome all of you on behalf of ICFI Law School, ICFI University. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all present here. On behalf of ICFI Law School, the ICFI University Dehradun, I extend a warm welcome to the pupil of gathering. I would like to express my gratitude to our honorable chief guest to take out time from his busy schedule to grace the national special guest lecture on a very, we can say, very beautiful topic. Fundamental duties are spread to promote fraternity, brotherhood, and rich heritage of composite culture. Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time and inspiring us, encouraging us with your kind words. You have given us a brief about the various provisions relating to the Constitution. You interpreted those provisions, fundamental duties, fundamental rights, and relating to the other aspects of law. You try to define us the different aspects relating to the Constitution. A special thank to Mr. Divakar Das and Dr. Meganshi Wilson, Faculty of Law, for immense support and organization to make the guest lecture a great success. I must thank the entire team of ICFI Law School, faculty and the students for working hard to make the guest lecture a success. Thank you everyone once again for making it a great learning session. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. It's over to Divakar, sir. Divakar, sir. Am I audible?
Thank you,
Hello.
sir.
Thank you.
Divakar, thank you for the guest lecture, and I thank Mr. Siddharth for coming here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Please do visit us when you come to Dehradun.
For sure, madam. Thank you for this invitation. I'll definitely come whenever I'm in
Thank
India.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Should I leave this now?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
We will be in touch.
Sure, sir.